Finance Committee meets to tie a bow on nominations week with votes on 3 nominees. For the information of members, we plan to have the votes around 11 a.m., depending on the number of members who wish to make statements. As we get a better sense, we'll adjust the time of the vote and inform members when to come back to the hearing room. And since members spent plenty of time in the hearing room last week, I'm just going to start off with brief remarks today. First, I'd like to address the nomination of Attorney General Javier Becerra to serve as Secretary of Health and Human Services. He served for 24 years in the House of Representatives. He was on the Committee of Jurisdiction with respect to health care. He was involved in writing and debating major pieces of health care legislation, including the Affordable Care Act. He has defended the act in court. During the pandemic, he fought to protect the health and well-being of all Californians, particularly nurses, doctors, and other workers who found themselves in harm's way. He has got the right managerial experience as well. As California's Attorney General, he was in charge of a $1 billion budget and a staff of thousands. If there is an effort to paint the Attorney General as some kind of inexperienced radical, it's just not backed up by what the committee saw last week. Senators will always have different views than nominees of the other party. Some of those issues came up on Wednesday, including women's health care. But disagreement on some issues alone is not a good enough reason to oppose a nominee as knowledgeable and qualified as Attorney General Becerra. It was clear in my view that he respects those, and he said this, colleagues, repeatedly, he respects those with whom he has differences of opinion, and he wants to find common ground with all members of this committee to solve big healthcare challenges. And I, too, very much wish to accomplish that. Bottom line, the country's in the middle of a public health nightmare, and the American people need and deserve a Senate-confirmed leader running the Department of Health and Human Services as soon as possible. The department is right at the center of the effort to save lives and end the pandemic. There is a tough job ahead of Attorney General Becerra, and the American people cannot afford delay with respect to moving this nomination. Next, not many hearings in the Senate feature as much bipartisan praise for nominees as Thursday's hearing on Katherine Tai's nomination to be the U.S. Trade Representative. On top of bipartisan credentials, she knows precisely the kind of smarter and stronger approach the country needs on trade, cracking down on China's trade cheating and using the leverage of our economic allies, rebuilding domestic supply chains, fighting to protect American jobs and wages, and expanding what she and I call the economic winner's circle. I also want to work with her on continuing to expand transparency on our trade policy. There's a lot for USTR to work on in the months ahead, but our workers, our businesses, our farmers, and ranchers will be well served with Katherine Tai on the job. Finally, Wally Adeyemo showed this committee on Thursday why he is exactly the right choice for the number 2 spot at the Treasury Department. He's committed to rebuilding our economy out of the wreckage of the pandemic unemployment crisis in a way that gives all Americans a chance to get ahead. The fact is, our economy's split in 2. For those at the top, the economy is strong. But for tens of millions of working families, particularly for women, for Black and Latino workers, for those who are already walking an economic tightrope before the pandemic, the last year has been a disaster. Unemployment is at levels not seen since the Great Depression. The Senate is going to continue its work on those issues with the American Rescue Plan hitting the floor. We understand there's a lot more to do. Mr. Adeyemo will be a leader on the economic recovery and more at the Treasury Department. I look forward to working with him. All 3 of these nominees are highly qualified. All 3 accounted for themselves, in my view, in an excellent fashion last week. I'm going to support all three. I urge my colleagues to do so. Senator Crapo.